No Longer Silent, Patient Access Stories.
And then I go meet with the radiation oncologist, and she says to me, we can't do radiation because there's too much cancer to radiate. All of your cancer has not only come back, but has come back with a vengeance.
Hello, hello, hello. In this very first episode of No Longer Silent, Patient Access Stories, we are getting loud with the one, the only, Reverend Tawana Angela Davis, PhD. She's an 8-year HER2-positive metastatic breast cancer thriver. And to the Reverend Tawana Angela Davis, PhD, I want to extend congratulations to you. At the time of this recording, you were inducted into the Hall of Fame at Turner Theological Seminary. Great honor. So I feel like I am in the presence of royalty. So I'm a little nervous today on this interview. So honored to be here. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It was truly an honor. And I am because you are. And that would not have happened without community and without your love and support on my journey. So thank you for helping to create that moment. It was definitely an honor. So thank you.
Wow. Wow. I guess we could gush and do this whole love fest for the whole next 30, 40 minutes. And so that would be easy, but I guess the people wouldn't get what we're really here for beyond expressing and sharing love between two Black women, which is not something that's, you think it would be celebrated a little more, but it's not as common as people would think that it is. So I have no shame in expressing my love and adoration and gratitude for all that is Reverend Tawana Angela Davis, PhD. You know that's going to be your new name now, right?
Yes.
Not Reverend Doctor, Reverend Tawana Angela Davis, PhD. That's who it is, up until that's who it is. Yes, ma'am. Okay, let's get into it. As you know, we are here to discuss being no longer silent. This is a patient access campaign because you know all too well the statistics that plague Black women who are diagnosed with breast cancer. And you have an incredible journey that we'd love to hear about, from you. I'm not going to summarize. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to leave all of the space for your story to be told through your voice about, when the system, let me say it differently, when you had to chin check the system.
Well,
let's go.
There were a few chin checks, and I've been on this journey now for 8 years. It'll be 8 years in November.
Hold on. Can we hear some for the 8 years?
For the 8 years.
The crowd goes wild.
Yes. Okay, 8 years of surviving, thriving, advocating, loving myself, focusing on my healing in community. And it has been community that has had my back, my front, and had to do some chin checks when I didn't have the energy or didn't know that things needed to be checked. So one salient point and one thread that goes throughout my story is community, and including you, my beloved sister, who not only is my sister, but was my cancer coach and coached me through advocating for myself and teaching me how to advocate for myself and giving me the language to advocate for myself. So when I was first diagnosed in November of 2016, I was diagnosed with metastatic HER2 positive breast cancer. Never been hospitalized, never broke a bone, never had any major illnesses, and struggle with any type of high blood pressure, cholesterol, blah, blah, blah. The only time I was in the hospital was when I gave birth to my two beautiful children, naturally, I might add, with no drugs and 20 something hours of labor. So that was my limited experience in the medical field in such a deep way. And when prior to being diagnosed, I was blessed. It was as if God was preparing me. Like God was like, daughter, you are about to face one of the most challenging times in your life, and I need to set you up. I need to prepare you to heal. So I was blessed with Reverend Dr. Tammy Denise. I was blessed with Carrie's Touch and other organizations. I was blessed with Our Mother Carolyn. I was blessed with my father's wife at the time when my father was living, who is a breast cancer survivor, to give me the language and to see Black women survive despite the statistic. They were the 59% that you talk about, Tam, the 59% that we need to focus on so that number will grow versus focusing on the 41% that just adds such a negative adage to our quest to live. So I knew that when through guidance and mentoring, that when doctors didn't see me, when they did not honor my pain, when they did not present choices to me, because it is my body, my choice, my decisions, not the doctors or the government. All of those things I learned prior to my diagnosis. So when those things happened, one, I was not in a room by myself. I was always with someone, whether it was Tam on the phone with me, or my dear friend coming with me to the doctor, or my daughter who came with me to every doctor's appointment, to ask the hard questions and to push back and to say, well, can you explain what this cocktail is? Explain this immunotherapy, and don't talk around me or over me. Talk to me, see me, honor me. And I was fortunate to have doctors that were, I would say, a particular doctor that was arrogant enough to say, like, not on my watch. You are going to live. Like, ain't nothing negative going to happen to you on my watch because I'm just that good. So I took the arrogance and I said, you go on with your arrogant self. And if that means I'm going to live and survive and thrive, that is great. So, chin checks, I love that term. So I'm going to keep using it as our theme. But the chin checks had to happen throughout, whether it was scans, whether it was side effects from the various medications I was on, when I had sepsis due to an infection in my port, and they wanted to try out different things. And my daughter was like, nah, we ain't trying anything. What is going to work is this. And it worked. She had to advocate for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here in this interview, because we are not an experiment. We, even in clinical trials, I was on a clinical trial, and I was on a clinical trial for a year. A, 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 a hard decision to make, because we know of the history with our beloved Henrietta Lacks. We know what J. Marion Sims has done. We know of the Tuskegee experiment. So no, we as Black women will not be experimented on and with. And with the clinical trials, there are benefits to it. It did help me tremendously until it didn't. And it was just my body responding adversely. And my doctors responded immediately and took me off. But with the introduction of the clinical trial, it was very in-depth, and I had a group of people that honored me as a Black woman and the fear of this experiment, if you will. So they chose their words wisely. They met me where I was. They explained in detail what was happening and how I would always have a baseline of treatment, because that was a scary part. Like, you're gonna put me on this immunotherapy, and I know research because we PhDs, sis. So I know that the data, sometimes it's the real medicine and sometimes it ain't. So you gonna leave me hanging or what? So
Right. The math wasn't
the
mathing.
math wasn't mathing. So there's always a baseline of constant care while on the immunotherapy. But all of those things came into fruition with an understanding, because of community, because of my team, because of the advocacy, and really showing up authentically, saying, I am going to live and not die at the hands of systemic ills.
Wow. I mean, good gravy. So much, so much. Okay. So I'll start with this. You started where we typically end, which is beautiful. And I love it. You gave the love up front. You talked about community. You talked about having the resources, never showing up to an appointment alone, making sure that you were prepared to go into your doctor's office, no matter what that conversation needed to look like. And you had courage to say no when you were not well informed, when you might have been fearful, or even uncertain for whatever the reason may be. You felt empowered to say no. You didn't walk into the doctor's offices with fear of the doctors. You might have been afraid of the unknown, but you weren't fearful of the doctors. That's what I'm getting from your introduction, and those are nuggets that we get to give to those who will listen to this podcast, for as long as this goes on. But I want to take us back just a tad bit, because people may not understand your original diagnosis of being HER2 positive and metastatic. I'm just going to say it for you so you don't have to say it. You can talk about life. In the medical community, especially for a Black woman, that is ultimately a death sentence. With folks being able to survive breast cancer at rates, historical rates than ever before, higher rates than ever before, when you get a HER2 positive metastatic breast cancer diagnosis, with the statistics that already plague Black women, there's not a lot of hope. And so that's why in the beginning, when we celebrated that 8 years, because medicine said she ain't supposed to be here. So, Dr. Tad, take us back a little bit and explain the diagnosis.
So yeah, I'm glad you're asking this question, because for each person it's so different. And I started the day that the pathology report came back, I was at stage 3, 2B, grade 3. So not stage 4. We didn't know it was metastatic at the time, which means it spread outside of the original tumor cancer area. And that's how quickly the cancer was growing and spreading. I even had a mammogram in May of 2016 that came back fine in layperson's terms. And in November, felt a lump under my left armpit, and my primary care, who was amazing, saw me, been doing this for 20 something years, said, I'm sending you right over to the breast clinic. And so we ended up doing a 3D mammogram biopsy. We did the surgery, did the pathology report, and I was stage 2B, grade 3. Then further testing in the blood work showed that my cancer spread to, and you help me out with this, Tam, because if I don't have it in front of me. So the metastases didn't actually make it to my organs, but it's the lobular or whatever leads to the organs. That's where the cancer was. Had I waited, or had they waited, or had we waited X amount of time, we would be telling a different story right now. So the metastases spread to oh gosh, ducts, or
Yeah, your ducks. I don't want to misspeak, because without looking at it, I just don't want to misspeak. So let's not have nobody on here talking about they don't know what they're talking about.
right.
What we do know is what your diagnosis, what your journey was. Okay.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yeah. So basically, if I understand you correctly, what you're basically saying is that, you know, we're on our way to the grocery store, and we have got some delicate items in the car with us. And we are on our way to the grocery store. And we actually get intercepted before we make it to the grocery store, before we do anything harm, any further harm would happen to those delicate items. Is that what you're saying when you talk
That's,
about the cancer traveling
yes.
through your lymphatic system, going into a whole nother area of your body? So the metastases was in, either it was in your lymphatic system, or if it was in the nodes, or the breast, tissue or lines, and all of that other medical stuff. Let me give a disclaimer. We might both be reverend doctors on here, but ain't now one of us gone to medical school. So
Amen.
we're not medical professionals. And that's, we just want to make that disclaimer, as we are just trying to paint the picture of your journey.
Yes. Yes. And that's a beautiful analogy. Yeah, that interception, kind of an interrupt or disruption, happened, and it was like, whoa, wait a minute. Cancer is spreading. It looks different from when we had the surgery and did the original pathology report. And then it was somewhere in between. So in March of 2017 was when I completed my first 6 rounds of chemo, right? Chemo and targeted therapy. So they did the medication first to shrink the tumor, and then did the surgery. So it was less, to remove, use, the chemo was shrinking the tumors, because I had 2. And then I opted for a bilateral mastectomy with reconstruction. And I had radiation then to follow. So this was in March. I stopped the treatment. In May, I had the bilateral mastectomy with reconstruction. And in June, because you have to wait a little while, I went for what they call radiation mapping, because the treatment plan was the treatment, the chemo and targeted therapy, the surgery, and then radiation. I go for radiation mapping, and it's like a CT scan, just for layperson's terms again. And they kind of map out the area that they're going to radiate. So the cancer was on my left side. So they do like these little markers, and they're very careful about, precisely radiating only the area where the cancer was. So they put me through the machine, they do the marking, and then I go meet with the radiation oncologist, and she says to me, Tawana, didn't you just have 6 rounds of, which is a very grueling cocktail, by the way. I lost my hair, weight, couldn't eat, everything tastes like metal, couldn't eat with metal utensils, blah, 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 couldn't bathe myself. The list goes on and on and on. Didn't you just have treatment and a bilateral mastectomy? Yeah, I did. She said, well, we can't do radiation because there's too much cancer to radiate. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, all of your cancer has not only come back, but has come back with a vengeance. So we cannot radiate. You're going to have to go back to your oncologist and talk about what to do. And when I was telling my story in another setting, I think that was the first time that I actually cried. Like, the entire time, it's not like I'm this, not feeding into this strong Black woman trope or whatever. I think I was in shock for so long, and trauma shows up so differently, right? So I think I was holding on to all of this. And then when that happened, the question rose, like, am I going to die? Because this right here is scary. So talk about having to step out and muster up some courage. One of the doctors on my team said, you need to get a second opinion, because what they wanted to do was to go back in and do another surgery, which would have further debilitated my left side. And there was no guarantee that the cancer wasn't going to come back again. It already came back the first time. And then they wanted to put me on a different med, which then would have further debilitated my quality of life, so on and so forth. So I went to get a second opinion, found out about the clinical trial. And another challenge that we face is clinical trials are tied into red tape, government processes. And so not every hospital has the same clinical trial available to them. So now I have to switch an entire medical team and go on a clinical trial as a Black woman, knowing the history of Black women and the medical field in these so-called United States, right? So, so that's how we went from this stage 2B, grade 3, to metastatic stage 4. Metastatic and stage 4 is used interchangeably often. And that's how I ended up on the clinical trial, which is one of the reasons why I'm still here today, because it built up my immune system in order to fight the disease. And I think after 2 treatments, after 2 rounds, my cancer was reduced by like 75%.
Wow. 2 rounds?
2 rounds of the immunotherapy, 75%.
So before you go on, let me just take, because I got to make sure that I'm connecting all of the dots, right? Yes, I was in it with you every step of the way, but I didn't live it every single day. But if I heard you correctly, they were sending you, your medical team was sending you to receive a treatment that actually could have killed you because it wasn't going to work. Because the cancer had already spread and had spread uncontrollably to where the radiation wasn't even going to work. What was the misstep in that? How did your oncologist send you to get radiation? And the radiation therapist looks at the same information that they have and say, oh, no, you can't see this. I mean, you can't have this. And then she said, if you don't take my, or whomever it was, if they said, if you don't take my word for it, go get a second opinion. And the second opinion said, you better get out of there, not just quick and fast, but quick, fast, and in a hurry. Because these, so did I listen? Did I heard you right?
Yeah. So when they completed the surgery, they thought, and I'm using air quotes because y'all can't see me, so I'm gonna describe, because I talk with my hands. So they thought, air quotes, that they got all the cancer out, which in all fairness, they may have gotten what they thought was all the cancer, but there had to be something in my body that then had this response that was able to feed off of other cells and spread very quickly. So where was the disconnect? Because we're just moving along with the treatment plan, which
What,
is one
what's
thing.
the what's the time frame in between there? Okay, so they have the surgery, right? And then so what's the time frame? Because another thing it tells us is actually how fast that cancer was growing.
Absolutely 2 months. 2 months. So March, I finished my treatment. March, April, May, I had the surgery. Actually 1.5 months, because the end of June was when I went for the radiation mapping and they discovered the cancer, and then sent me back to my medical team and they all trying to figure out what to do. And my one beloved team member was like, if you were my sister, and you're like family to me, like when I would show up to his particular office, I had the crew with me. If I didn't have the crew with me, he's like, Tawana, where's everybody at?
Right. What you
What,
doing?
what you doing? What's going on? So he was the one who told me, here, call this doctor, get a second opinion, because this doesn't make sense. So it was a month and a half, I would say, from the time I completed my surgery and reconstruction, to the time I had radiation mapping, a month and a half, a recurrence, an aggressive recurrence.
We want to pause for a moment to thank our platinum partner, Amgen. Amgen has been a consistent partner who not just talks the talk, they fight hard to illuminate voices and experiences of diverse patients. We're truly thankful for such a beautiful partnership. This conversation is also activated by Genentech and Change for Sean. Thank you to all of our partners. Yeah, so you also said something that was just so mind-boggling. You said recently you shared your story, and for the first time you cried. And, we celebrated that you've been on this journey for 8 years. So in 8 years, your release finally came.
Yeah.
And eight, not to get all deep in numerology and all that stuff, because I'm not that girl either, but I do know a few things about a few things. Eight is the number of new beginnings. You are having a lot of new beginnings on this healing journey. That sounds just so incredibly beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's talk, though, a minute about your mental health, because holding on to that type of grief, that type of, I don't want to name it for you, but whatever feelings and emotions you would name to describe it for 8 years, talk about that. What was that like?
Yeah. So one thing I did, through storytelling, that was a way for me to let it out, so that God can pour back into me what I needed to heal, and not hold on to, stress kills, anxiety, all of those things. They just work adversely in your body. So over the 8 years, I mean, I shed tears. When you watch your children cry, you cry. But I'm talking about that cathartic letting go. Like, this is really happening to me. Like, this is a 2 years in, and you're telling me that this has spread so aggressively in a month and a half. And it was like I was facing death. And in that moment, I think it was just shock that overwhelmed me. So I think in telling my story, one day it just hit me, like, what would have happened to my children? Like, we both lost our moms at very young ages, and I lost my mom to cancer. I was 23 years young. And so all of this was just like a montage. And once I was done with telling my story, I went into the corner and a beloved came with me, and I just let go. Something just said, Tawana, just let it go. And Tam, I never, and again, you being just such a mentor and a guide on this journey. There was no shame in crying. There was no shame in being angry. It was no shame in giving God the side eye, like, really? No, no shame. So it wasn't like I intentionally was like, I think it was just the shock and the trauma and the grief of losing my health, the grief of losing my breast, the grief of losing my freedom. You know, my immune system was compromised. I could no longer, I was wearing a mask before COVID. I was wearing gloves before COVID. So that, storytelling was my release. Therapy helped me with my mental health. Talking to beloveds like you and Mother Carolyn and others and my sisters. I just had an amazing village that served in different capacities, that kept me grounded in my faith. My faith was like, God, I don't understand what you're doing, but I've seen you perform miracles seen and unseen before, and I just must believe that you are going to do it again. And I had to hold on. So that kept me mentally, physically, emotionally grounded. Did I have my moments? Absolutely. Did I have my moments of anger? Absolutely. Did I have my moments of leave me alone? I just need to be by myself. I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want to tell my story. I don't want, give me a minute. So I did go through the ups and downs and the ebb and flow of it all, but I was still grounded. It's almost like a palm tree that's so strong and rooted and grounded. In the midst of the storm, a palm tree can bend all the way like to the ground and bounce back up. So I felt like a palm tree in that moment. Like the elements are there, but I'm grounded. I'm bending. I'm shaking, but I'm still here and I'm still grounded.
You better preach that sermon. If I could throw a shoe at you right now, you better preach that sermon. So, this campaign is, breaking silence in many ways. And it's a message to politicians. And if I were a politician, what would you say to me, just based on your experience?
I would say to a politician 3 things. One, we must humanize this experience. 1. 2, we must, in the humanization of this experience, we must stop putting profits over people. 3, when we stop putting profits over people, that will give those that are most gravely impacted by this an opportunity to live and not die at the hands of systemic ills. And then I would end with a question. And why should you care? Because we are antithetical to whiteness, to individualism. What we bring to this world is a collective. We are a part of an ecosystem. And you think that it's not impacting you, but it is impacting you, or it will impact you if you don't take care of those constituents that you promise to lead and to serve. So don't think individually like this is just my decision, because it's going to come back and it ain't going to be pretty. So you got to love those and have compassion and empathy. And if we have, as Tupac said it best, we got money for wars, but we can't feed the poor. You mean to tell me that we can't, give access to those in marginalized communities to get a free mammogram? Really? You're going to stop someone from receiving medical care because They don't have insurance, and they don't have insurance because they don't have a job, because y'all not hiring Black folk. And then if you give me a job, I'm not being paid a livable wage. And you don't understand the thousands of dollars that I have to pay, even though I have a very good job. I still have to pay thousands of dollars after I get treatment. So it's just the system itself has to be changed. And if you are a politician, don't tell me you don't have the power to change the system, because then you don't need to be a politician, because you do have the power to change the system. You got to want to change the system and be communal about it so that we could live and not die at the hands of systemic ills. Called healthcare, like healthcare.
I'm just like, it's not often that I'm at a loss for words. But sometimes when the sermon has been preached, no even getting up and re-preaching it. Just, So I'm gonna move on to my next question to ask you. Is there anything that you want to share that you feel you have not shared yet?
I had to learn to love myself with an unconditional positive regard. What does that mean? That means loving myself in the midst of a diagnosis. It's not my diagnosis. I will not own it or claim it. It is something that invaded my body. And I still have agency. I still have voice. I still have spirit. I am still divine. And I had to learn those things and to learn to love myself so that I would attract those who would love me in the same manner, so that I am surrounded by things that are going to speak life into me and not focus on any type of doubt, fear, not loving myself. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. No, we totally change that language. So even in the midst of a diagnosis, you are worthy. You are divine. You are magical. You, even from waking up in the morning and being able to see the sunrise, I am grateful to be able to wake up in the morning, even if I'm in pain or I'm on my way to treatment. I am grateful. There are things to be grateful for, and that wells up, and then that attracts such beauty around us. And that also helps us live and not die, because we then control the narrative of love and having love as the center and the essence. And what is love? The divine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, in your humility, you are very gracious in sharing your love with others and people that have been along the journey with you before these 8 years, and especially these 8 years. Tell us a little bit about Dr. Tad. Who is Dr. Tad, and what are you passionate about?
Whew. Yeah. So Dr. Tad is a Black woman who is human and divine, loving and compassionate, fierce and protective, a mother, a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a godmother, a cousin, all of those things. All of those labels are wonderful, but what drives me and what gives me life day in and day out, I am breath, I am air, I am the ruach of the divine. I am that I am. Full stop. I am all that God has created me to be. So take me as I am. And I am in the spirit of Ubuntu, not of self-aggrandizement, not popping my collar, not use my title, not, I'm better than, no, I am because you are, because our humanity, is the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu says, our humanity is inextricably bound So if I am loved, you are loved. If I am healing, you are healing. And if you're not healing, I'm going to take my healing prowess, share some love and light with you, and we're going to journey together toward this moment of healing. So I am a healer. I am a womanist. I am a thought provoker. I'm a lover of all, lover of souls. I am that I am.
You better show up, Black woman. That's what you better do.
I
You
wish they could see my shirt.
I love being a Black woman. Yes. All of that. Dr. Tad, thank you so much. This has been so healing for me. I'll just be transparent in this moment. I came into this moment very heavy. We are going through some things in the organization, and I was concerned about facing you because the depth of what we're going through. And I was like, I don't know if I have it in me to get through the Dr. Tad interview, but you have just been everything that you just said that you are to me. So I am just honored and grateful to you for being all that you are. And I'm not calling you any of these things, but in the spirit of Seeley, we may be Black, we may be ugly, but daggone it, we are here.
We are
You
here.
are here 8 years and counting.
Yes.
Wow. Just wow. Just wow.
Thank you for inserting Seeley into this narrative. And if I can just steal 1 minute, in the song I'm Here, she says, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to hold my head up. I'm going to put my shoulders back and look you straight in the eye. I'm going to flirt with somebody when they walk by. I'm going to sing out. I'm going to sing out because I believe I have everything inside of me to live a bountiful life. And all the love in me, I will stand as tall as the tallest tree. And I'll stop there. Thank you. Thank you.
Whew.
Thank you.
Yes.
Whew, I'm thankful for every day that I'm given, both the easy and the hard ones I'm living. But most of all, I'm thankful for loving who I am.
Yes.
I'm beautiful. Yes, I'm beautiful. And we, my beloved sister, are here.
Yes, we are. And y'all, that is the Reverend Tawana Angela Davis, PhD. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Tawana Angela Davis. Whew, you just take my breath away every single time. Many blessings to you on your healing journey as you go forth. Thank you to renowned virtual photographer John Keatley and his incredible team. A special thanks to Photos by A Love LLC, April Jones, Retouch Artist, and to the dedicated Carrie's Touch tribe for your unwavering support in helping us create stories that heal. And another big thank you to our platinum sponsor, Amgen. For more information about these stories and other survivor support and advocacy information, visit us at our website at www.carriestouch.org.